The morning sun cast long shadows across the Coronado Naval Amphibious Base as Master Chief Petty Officer Jake Morrison reviewed the personnel files spread across his desk. 23 years in the Navy SEALs had taught him to read between the lines of military records, and what he saw in these files made him shake his head in disbelief. The brass was sending them a sniper. Not just any sniper, but a woman who had somehow managed to complete scout sniper school at the top of her class. Morrison had seen plenty of changes during his career. He had watched the military evolve, adapt, and open doors that had been sealed shut for decades. But this was different. This was a SEAL team, and they were about to receive their first female team member, not as a medic or intelligence officer, but as a precision marksman who would be expected to take the hardest shots under the most dangerous conditions. The file belonged to Petty Officer First Class Sarah Chun, age 26, originally from a small farming town in Montana. Her marksmanship scores were exceptional, nearly perfect across all weapon systems. Her psychological evaluations showed remarkable stability under pressure, and her physical fitness scores exceeded those of many male candidates. What caught Morrison's attention most was her background. She had grown up hunting with her father, a Vietnam veteran who had taught her to shoot before she could properly hold a rifle. Morrison closed the file and walked to the window overlooking the training compound. His team was conducting morning physical training, their movements precise and synchronized. These were some of the most elite warriors in the world, men who had proven themselves in the mountains of Afghanistan, the deserts of Iraq, and in classified operations that would never make the headlines. They were his responsibility, and introducing a new dynamic to their brotherhood would require careful handling. The door to his office opened without a knock, and Morrison turned to see his senior enlisted advisor, Senior Chief Petty Officer Mark Rodriguez, entering with 2 cups of coffee. Rodriguez had been with Morrison for 8 years, through 3 deployments and countless training exercises. If anyone could gauge the team's reaction to this news, it would be Rodriguez. "I heard we're getting a new team member," Rodriguez said, setting 1 cup on Morrison's desk. "Word travels fast around here." Morrison nodded, picking up Chen's file. "What's the word from the team?" Rodriguez took a sip of his coffee and considered his response carefully. "Mixed reactions, Master Chief. Some of the guys are curious, others are skeptical. A few are openly resistant to the idea. They're worried about unit cohesion, about whether she can handle the physical demands, about whether they'll have to modify their approach to accommodate her." "And what do you think?" Morrison asked. "I think we owe it to ourselves and to her to judge based on performance, not assumptions," Rodriguez replied. "But I also think we need to be realistic about the challenges ahead. This team has been together for 3 years. They trust each other with their lives. Introducing anyone new is difficult, but this situation adds layers of complexity we've never dealt with before." Morrison understood the concerns. SEAL teams operated on a level of trust and intimacy that was difficult for outsiders to comprehend. They shared everything: living quarters, showers, the most private and vulnerable moments of fear and exhaustion. They had seen each other at their worst and their best. The bonds they formed were forged in combat and tested under conditions that would break most people. The morning briefing was scheduled for 800 hours, and Morrison knew he needed to address the situation head-on. He gathered his team in the briefing room, 8 men who represented the pinnacle of special operations training. Each had earned his place through years of grueling selection processes, advanced training, and proven performance in combat. Petty Officer Second Class Tommy Williams sat in the back row, his arms crossed, and his expression skeptical. Williams was the team's primary breacher, a former college football player from Texas who could blow through any door or wall with surgical precision. Next to him sat Petty Officer Second Class Alex Kumar, the team's communications specialist and technology expert, whose calm demeanor masked a fierce intelligence that had saved their lives on more than one occasion. In the front row, Petty Officer First Class David Park, their medic, reviewed notes from their last training exercise. Park had served 2 tours with Army Rangers before cross-training to become a SEAL Corpsman. His medical skills were matched only by his abilities as an assaulter. Beside him, Petty Officer Second Class Marcus Johnson, their demolitions expert, cleaned his fingernails with a knife, a habit that belied his nervous energy before important announcements. The team's other sniper, Petty Officer First Class Ryan Mitchell, sat alone on the left side of the room. Mitchell was quiet by nature, methodical in his approach to everything, and absolutely deadly with a rifle. He had the highest confirmed kill count in the team and took his role as precision marksman seriously. The addition of another sniper would change his position within the team dynamic. Chief Petty Officer Tony Castellanos, Morrison's second-in-command, sat at the front of the room reviewing the training schedule. Castellanos had been with Special Operations for 15 years and had a reputation for being fair but demanding. His leadership style complemented Morrison's, and together they had built one of the most effective SEAL teams in the command. Finally, there was Petty Officer Second Class James Wright, their intelligence specialist, whose ability to gather and analyze information had prevented numerous ambushes and identified countless high-value targets. Wright was perhaps the most analytical member of the team, always thinking 3 steps ahead and considering all possible angles. Morrison stood at the front of the room, his presence commanding immediate attention. "Gentlemen, we're going to have a new team member joining us next week. Petty Officer First Class Sarah Chun will be our second precision marksman." The room fell silent. Morrison could see the questions forming in their minds, the concerns about how this would change their operations, their living arrangements, their relationships with each other. Williams was the first to speak. "Master Chief, with all due respect, how is this going to work? We've never operated with a woman before. Our quarters, our missions, everything is going to have to change." Morrison nodded, expecting this question. "The Navy has made accommodations for housing. Chim will have private quarters, but she'll train with us, deploy with us, and operate as a full member of this team. The mission comes first always. If she can't perform to our standards, she'll be transferred. If she can, then she earns her place just like everyone else." Mitchell raised his hand. "What about her qualifications? What's her background?" Morrison opened Chen's file. "Top of her class at Scout Sniper School. Expert marksman on all weapons systems. Completed Marine Corps infantry training before cross-training to the Navy. She's been recommended for advanced training by every instructor she's worked with." "That's all good on paper," Castellanos interjected. "But how does she handle pressure? How does she work as part of the team?" "We'll find out during training," Morrison replied. "But her psychological evaluations show remarkable stability under stress. She's completed 3 combat deployments as an intelligence specialist before requesting sniper training. She's not coming to us without experience." Rodriguez stood up, addressing the team. "Look, I know this is new territory for all of us, but let's remember what we stand for. We're professionals. We evaluate people based on their abilities and their contributions to the mission. She's earned a right to try out for this team through her qualifications and her service record. The least we can do is give her a fair chance to prove herself." Park nodded in agreement. "I've worked with female medics and intelligence officers before. Some of them were among the best soldiers I've ever served with. Gender doesn't determine competence." Kumar leaned forward. "My biggest concern is team chemistry. It's taken us 3 years to develop the level of trust we have now. How long will it take to integrate a new member, especially with the added complications of gender dynamics?" Morrison appreciated Kumar's honesty. "That's a valid concern, and it's something we'll have to work through together. But remember, every one of you is new at some point. When Williams joined us 2 years ago, it took time for him to find his place. When Johnson replaced our previous demolitions expert, there were adjustments. Integration always takes time." Johnson looked up from his knife. "But this is different, Master Chief. We've never had to worry about personal relationships developing within the team. What happens if someone develops feelings for her, or she develops feelings for someone on the team? That could destroy unit cohesion." The question hung in the air, and Morrison knew it was one that had to be addressed directly. The Navy has strict policies about fraternization, and those policies will be enforced. More importantly, I expect every member of this team to maintain professional standards at all times. Personal relationships within the team are not acceptable, period. Anyone who can't maintain those standards will be removed from the team. Wright, who had been silent throughout the discussion, finally spoke up. What about the physical standards? Will she be held to the same fitness requirements as the rest of us? Absolutely, Morrison replied without hesitation. Same fitness standards, same training requirements, same performance expectations. There will be no modifications or accommodations based on gender. Williams shook his head. I'm not trying to be difficult, Master Chief, but some of the things we do, the physical demands of our missions. I just have a hard time believing that a woman can meet the same standards. Morrison set Chen's file on the table. Her fitness scores are in this file. Her obstacle course times, her swimming times, her physical training test scores. Take a look and judge for yourself. But remember, she wouldn't be here if she hadn't already proven she could meet our standards. The team spent the next hour discussing practical concerns, modifications to living quarters, operational procedures, training schedules. Morrison was pleased to see that despite their initial skepticism, his men were approaching the situation professionally, focusing on practical solutions rather than emotional reactions. As the briefing ended, Morrison pulled Castellanos aside. I need you to be my eyes and ears during her integration period. Watch for problems, but also watch for anyone who might be giving her an unfair shake. Castellanos nodded. What's your honest assessment, Master Chief? Do you think this is going to work? Morrison looked out the window at the training compound, where his team was already returning to their morning routine. I think we're about to find out what this team is really made of. If we're as professional as we claim to be, then we'll evaluate her based on performance and nothing else. If we're not, he left the sentence unfinished. The following week seemed to pass both quickly and slowly. Morrison found himself checking Chen's arrival time repeatedly, wondering how she would handle walking into a room full of elite warriors who were judging her every move. He had spoken with her commanding officer at her previous unit, who had nothing but praise for her professionalism and competence. Rodriguez had worked with the base facilities management to prepare separate quarters for Chun, ensuring she would have privacy while still being integrated into the team's living area. The team had adjusted their training schedule to accommodate the integration period, planning exercises that would allow them to evaluate her skills without putting anyone at unnecessary risk. On the morning of Chen's arrival, Morrison stood in his office reviewing the integration plan one final time. The team would meet her together, conduct initial evaluations of her physical fitness and marksmanship abilities, and begin the process of determining how she would fit into their operational structure. Rodriguez appeared in the doorway. Master Chief, she's here. Morrison nodded and walked with Rodriguez toward the main entrance of their compound. Through the glass doors, he could see a Navy sedan pulling up to the curb. A figure in Navy working uniform emerged from the passenger seat, gathered a sea bag and rifle case from the trunk, and walked toward the building. Sarah Chun was smaller than Morrison had expected, perhaps 5 feet 6 inches tall with a lean, athletic build. Her uniform was immaculate, her posture confident, but not arrogant. She carried herself with the quiet professionalism that Morrison associated with experienced snipers. As she approached the entrance, Morrison could see her eyes scanning the compound, taking in details, assessing her new environment with the systematic thoroughness of someone trained in observation and analysis. She entered the building and approached Morrison and Rodriguez, setting down her gear and coming to attention. Master Chief Morrison, Petty Officer First Class Chun, reporting for duty. Morrison returned her salute and extended his hand. Welcome to the team, Chun. This is Senior Chief Rodriguez, my senior enlisted advisor. Chun shook both their hands with a firm grip, maintaining eye contact. Thank you, Master Chief. I'm honored to be here and ready to get to work. Rodriguez picked up her sea bag. I'll show you to your quarters so you can get settled in. The team is waiting to meet you in the briefing room. As they walked through the compound, Morrison studied Chen's demeanor. She was alert but not nervous, professional but not rigid. She asked practical questions about training schedules, operational procedures, and equipment requirements. Her voice was clear and confident, with no trace of the hesitation or uncertainty that might be expected from someone entering such a challenging situation. They stopped at her quarters, a small but private room that had been modified with its own bathroom and entrance. Chin set down her gear and looked around the space, nodding approvingly. "This will work perfectly, Senior Chief. I appreciate the accommodations." Rodriguez smiled. "We want you to feel comfortable here. You'll be spending a lot of time in this building, and we want you to feel like it's home." Chun shouldered her rifle case. "I'm ready to meet the team whenever you are." Morrison led the way to the briefing room where his team waited. As they approached the door, he could hear the quiet conversation inside fall silent. He opened the door and stepped inside, followed by Chun. The 8 men of his team sat in their usual positions, their expressions ranging from curious to skeptical to openly doubtful. Morrison could feel the tension in the room, the weight of unspoken questions and concerns. "Gentlemen, this is Petty Officer First Class Sarah Chun, our new precision marksman." Chun stepped forward, her rifle case in one hand, her posture confident but respectful. "Good morning. I look forward to working with all of you and earning my place on this team." The room remained silent for a moment, and Morrison could see his men evaluating her, forming first impressions that would influence everything that followed. Chun seemed unaffected by the scrutiny, maintaining her professional demeanor while meeting each man's gaze directly. Williams was the first to respond, standing and extending his hand. "Welcome to the team, Chun. I'm Tommy Williams, breacher." One by one, the others followed suit, introducing themselves and their specialties. Morrison watched the interactions carefully, noting the varying degrees of warmth and acceptance in each greeting. Some, like Park and Kumar, seemed genuinely welcoming. Others, like Mitchell and Johnson, were more reserved, their handshakes perfunctory. When the introductions were complete, Morrison addressed the group. "Chin will be starting her integration training immediately. We'll begin with physical fitness assessments, followed by marksmanship evaluations and team exercises. The goal is to determine how she fits into our operational structure and to identify any areas that need additional training or development." Castellanos stood up. "Chun, do you have any questions about our training procedures or expectations?" Chun nodded. "I've read the team's operational history and training protocols. I understand that you're among the most elite units in the military, and I don't expect special treatment or accommodations. I'm here to contribute to the mission and to prove that I belong." Mitchell spoke for the first time. "What's your longest confirmed kill?" The question was direct and professional, but Morrison could hear the underlying challenge in Mitchell's voice. Chin didn't hesitate in her response. 860 meters, Taliban sniper in Afghanistan. Moving target, crosswind of 15 knots, single shot. The room fell silent again, and Morrison could see the surprise on several faces. 860 meters was an exceptional shot under those conditions, requiring not just marksmanship skills, but also advanced understanding of ballistics, weather conditions, and target movement. Kumar leaned forward. "What rifle system?" "M24 sniper weapon system. End-loaded ammunition, custom scope adjustments for elevation and windage." Park nodded approvingly. "That's impressive. What other weapon systems are you qualified on?" Chun began listing her certifications, and Morrison watched his team's expressions change as they realized the extent of her training and experience. She was qualified on virtually every weapon system used by Special Operations Forces, from precision rifles to crew-served weapons to explosives. As the questions continued, Morrison could see his team beginning to reassess their initial assumptions. Chin answered each question directly and thoroughly, demonstrating not just technical knowledge, but practical experience. She didn't boast or embellish, simply provided factual responses that revealed the depth of her capabilities. Williams asked about her physical fitness scores, and Chun provided times and scores that were genuinely impressive. Johnson inquired about her demolitions training, and she described complex breaching operations she had supported. Wright questioned her intelligence-gathering experience, and she outlined surveillance and reconnaissance missions that had resulted in significant operational successes. By the end of the initial meeting, Morrison could see that his team's skepticism was beginning to give way to cautious respect. They weren't yet convinced, but they were no longer dismissive. Chun had handled herself professionally, answered their questions honestly, and demonstrated qualifications that demanded serious consideration. As the team dispersed to prepare for the afternoon training session, Morrison pulled Chun aside. "How do you feel about that initial reception?" Chun considered her response carefully. "About what I expected, Master Chief. They're protecting something they've worked hard to build, and they're right to be skeptical of anyone new. I don't expect them to accept me immediately. I expect them to judge me based on my performance, and I'm confident in my abilities." Morrison nodded, impressed by her mature perspective. "The next few weeks are going to be challenging. They're going to test you in every way possible, looking for weaknesses or reasons to doubt your capabilities. How do you plan to handle that?" "By performing to the best of my ability and letting my work speak for itself," Chun replied. "I didn't come here to make friends, Master Chief. I came here to be part of the best special operations team in the Navy. If I can contribute to the mission and help keep these men safe, the personal relationships will develop naturally." As Morrison watched Chun walk toward her quarters to prepare for training, he reflected on the day's events. The initial meeting had gone better than he had dared hope. There had been no open hostility, no inappropriate comments, no obvious attempts to undermine or intimidate her. His team had behaved professionally, asking legitimate questions and listening to her responses with genuine interest. But Morrison knew that the real test was yet to come. Meeting room introductions were one thing. Performing under pressure, demonstrating competence under stress, and proving that she could be trusted with the lives of her teammates was something entirely different. The next few weeks would determine whether Sarah Chun would become a valued member of one of the military's most elite units, or whether the barriers of tradition, skepticism, and institutional resistance would prove insurmountable. The afternoon sun was beginning to set as Morrison prepared to observe Chun's first training session with his team. Everything they had worked for, everything they represented as an elite unit, was about to be tested in ways none of them had experienced before. The woman who had walked confidently into their briefing room that morning was about to discover what it truly meant to earn a place among the Navy's most elite warriors. The morning air was crisp as Sarah Chun laced up her boots at 0500 hours. She had slept poorly, not from nerves, but from the unfamiliar sounds of her new environment. Every military base had its own rhythm, its own pattern of noises that indicated the daily cycle of operations, and she was still learning the sounds of Coronado. She had awakened an hour before the scheduled physical training session, using the time to review her gear and mentally prepare for what she knew would be the most challenging day of her military career. The team would be evaluating everything about her: her physical capabilities, her mental toughness, her ability to integrate into their established routines, and, most importantly, whether she could be trusted in combat situations. Chun stepped out of her quarters and walked toward the physical training area where the team was already assembling. The California morning was beautiful, with clear skies and a gentle breeze coming off the Pacific. Under different circumstances, she might have appreciated the scenery, but this morning her focus was entirely on the 8 men who would determine her future. Master Chief Morrison stood near the obstacle course with Senior Chief Rodriguez, both men holding clipboards and checking their watches. The rest of the team was completing warm-up exercises, their movements coordinated and efficient. These men had been training together for years, and it showed in the way they moved, the way they anticipated each other's actions, the way they functioned as a unified unit. Chun joined the warm-up routine without being asked, falling into the rhythm of stretching and calisthenics that preceded every SEAL training session. Williams, the team's breacher, glanced at her form as she executed perfect push-ups and pull-ups, his expression neutral but observant. Kumar, the communications specialist, nodded approvingly as she demonstrated proper form during mountain climbers and burpees. "All right, listen up," Morrison called out, bringing the team to attention. "Today we're going to evaluate Chin's physical capabilities and see how she integrates with our standard training protocols. We'll start with the obstacle course, followed by a 4-mile run, and finish with weapons training on the range." Morrison turned to Chun. "Same standards apply to everyone. No modifications, no allowances. You'll be timed and scored just like every other member of this team." Chun nodded. "Understood, Master Chief. I'm ready." The obstacle course at Coronado was legendary among Special Operations Forces. It was a brutal combination of rope climbs, wall scaling, barbed wire crawls, and precision jumps that tested every aspect of physical fitness and mental determination. Chun had completed similar courses during her previous training, but she knew this one would be different. This time, she wasn't just competing against a standard. She was competing for acceptance. Rodriguez explained the course layout and the minimum time standards. Chun listened carefully, noting the specific techniques required for each obstacle and mentally rehearsing her approach. The team gathered around to watch, their expressions ranging from curious to skeptical. Mitchell, the team's primary sniper, stood apart from the others, his arms crossed as he studied Chin's preparation. She could feel his evaluation, the way he was assessing her confidence, her focus, her readiness. As the person whose role she was partially filling, Mitchell had the most to gain or lose from her integration into the team. "Chun, you're up," Morrison announced. Chun stepped to the starting line, taking deep breaths to control her heart rate and focus her mind. She had completed this type of course hundreds of times, but never under such intense scrutiny. The team members positioned themselves at various points along the course, ready to observe her technique and her response to obstacles. At Morrison's signal, Chun exploded from the starting line, sprinting toward the first obstacle. The rope climb required precise technique and upper body strength that many soldiers struggled to develop. Chun attacked it with confidence, using her legs to assist her arms as she rapidly ascended the 30-foot rope. Her technique was flawless, demonstrating years of practice and natural athletic ability. From the rope, she transitioned to the parallel bars, maintaining her momentum while demonstrating the balance and coordination required to navigate the narrow beams. Williams watched her foot placement, noting the way she adjusted to the equipment without hesitation. The wall climb presented the greatest challenge for most candidates. The 12-foot barrier required explosive leg strength and upper body power to overcome. Chun approached it at full speed, leaping high and catching the top edge with both hands. In one fluid motion, she pulled herself up and over, landing on the far side without breaking stride. "Damn," Johnson muttered under his breath, impressed despite himself. The barbed wire crawl tested mental toughness as much as physical capability. Candidates had to low crawl through mud and sand while barbed wire hung just inches above their backs. It was designed to simulate combat conditions where soldiers might have to move under enemy fire. Chun dropped to her belly and began moving forward with the systematic precision of someone who had done this many times before. Park observed her technique, noting the way she kept her body low while maintaining forward momentum. There was no hesitation, no indication that the discomfort or difficulty was affecting her focus. She emerged from the far end covered in sand, but moving at the same pace she had maintained throughout the course. The final obstacles included a series of precision jumps, tire runs, and balance beams that tested coordination and agility. Chun navigated them smoothly, her movements efficient and controlled. As she approached the finish line, Rodriguez clicked his stopwatch. "Time," Rodriguez called out, looking at his watch with surprise. Morrison walked over to check the time, his eyebrows rising slightly. Chin's time was not just acceptable. It was exceptional. She had completed the course faster than half the team members' personal best times, and she had done it on her first attempt at this particular course. "Outstanding," Morrison announced. That time would place you in the top 15% of all SEAL candidates. Chun wiped sweat from her forehead, breathing hard but not exhausted. Thank you, Master Chief. The course is well designed. William stepped forward. I've been watching your technique. You've done this before. Chun nodded. Similar courses at different facilities. Each one is unique, but the principles remain the same. Kumar approached, clearly impressed. Your rope climbing technique is textbook perfect. Where did you learn that? My father taught me the basics when I was young, Chun replied. Military training refined the technique. The team gathered around Morrison as he prepared to announce the next phase of testing. Chun could sense that her performance on the obstacle course had shifted something in the group dynamic. They were no longer looking at her with skepticism. They were looking at her with the beginning of professional respect. Next phase is the 4-mile run, Morrison announced. Standard route through the base and surrounding area. Same pace we always maintain. Rodriguez stepped forward to address Chun. We run as a team, maintaining formation and cadence. Can you keep up with our standard pace? Chun nodded confidently. I'm ready, Senior Chief. The team formed up in their standard running formation, with Morrison at the front, Castellanos bringing up the rear, and the others distributed throughout the group. Chun positioned herself in the middle of the formation, aware that every step would be evaluated. Morrison set a pace that was aggressive but sustainable, the rhythm that the team had developed over years of training together. Chun fell into the cadence naturally, her breathing controlled and her stride efficient. Running had always been one of her strongest skills, developed through years of distance training and refined during military service. As they left the base and moved onto the roads surrounding Coronado, the team began to test Chun in subtle ways. Kumar increased his pace slightly, trying to determine if Chun would struggle to match the acceleration. She stayed with him easily. Park dropped back and then surged forward, testing her ability to adjust to changes in pace. She adapted without difficulty. The real test came during the 3rd mile, when the team encountered a series of hills that challenged even experienced runners. This was where many candidates broke down, where the combination of physical stress and mental pressure revealed weaknesses that might not be apparent under normal conditions. Chun attacked the hills with the same systematic approach she had demonstrated on the obstacle course. Her breathing remained controlled, her stride consistent, her focus unwavering. Williams, running beside her, found himself impressed by her mental toughness. She wasn't just maintaining the pace. She was showing signs that she could increase it if necessary. Johnson, who had initially been among the most skeptical team members, began to reevaluate his assumptions. Chun's performance was not just adequate, it was genuinely impressive. She was demonstrating the kind of physical capabilities and mental resilience that the team demanded from all its members. As they approached the final mile, Morrison increased the pace, pushing the team toward their maximum sustainable speed. This was the point where individual character was revealed, where the difference between adequate and exceptional became apparent. Chun responded to the increased pace without hesitation, maintaining her position in the formation and showing no signs of distress. Wright, the team's intelligence specialist, found himself running beside Chun during the final stretch. He decided to test her mental state while under physical stress. "How are you feeling?" he asked, his own breathing slightly labored. "Good," Chun replied, her voice steady and controlled. "Ready for whatever comes next." Wright nodded, impressed by her composure. Many candidates became focused entirely on their own survival during difficult physical tests, losing awareness of their surroundings and their teammates. Chun remained alert and responsive, maintaining the kind of tactical awareness that was essential in combat situations. The team completed the 4-mile run in time that would have challenged experienced runners, but Chun finished strongly, her breathing controlled, and her posture indicating that she could have continued if necessary. As the team gathered at the finish point, Morrison checked his watch and nodded approvingly. "Excellent time, everyone." "Chun, how did that compare to your normal running routine?" Chun wiped sweat from her face with a towel Rodriguez handed her. "Comparable to my usual distance training, Master Chief. Good pace, well-coordinated formation." Castellanos stepped forward. Most new team members struggle to maintain formation during their first team run. You adapted well to our rhythm. Chen nodded appreciatively. Running as a team requires different skills than individual training. I've had experience with formation running during previous units. The morning's physical testing had established that Chun could meet the team's fitness standards, but everyone knew that physical capability was only one aspect of special operations selection. The afternoon would bring weapons training and marksmanship evaluation, the areas where Chun would need to demonstrate the specific skills that had earned her assignment to the team. After a brief rest period and equipment preparation, the team moved to the shooting range for the next phase of evaluation. Chun retrieved her rifle case from her quarters, carrying the custom-built precision weapon that had become her signature during previous assignments. The shooting range at Coronado was among the most advanced in the military, with targets available at distances from 50 to 1,000 meters. Morrison had designed a comprehensive evaluation that would test Chin's abilities with multiple weapons systems under various conditions. Mitchell, as the team's primary sniper, would be conducting much of the marksmanship evaluation. Chun could sense his particular interest in her performance, understanding that her capabilities would directly impact his role within the team. If she proved to be exceptional, it might change the dynamic of how the team approached precision shooting missions. Let's start with basic marksmanship, Mitchell announced, setting up targets at 100 meters. Standard military rifle, iron sights, 10 rounds. Chun accepted the M4 carbine that Mitchell handed her, quickly inspecting the weapon to ensure it was properly configured and safe to fire. Her handling of the rifle was smooth and professional, demonstrating the kind of weapons familiarity that came from extensive training and experience. Taking a supported firing position, Chen aimed at the center of the target and began her shooting sequence. Her breathing was controlled, her trigger technique smooth and consistent. Each shot was deliberately placed, with minimal time between rounds, but no indication of rushing or carelessness. When she finished the 10-round string, Mitchell called for a ceasefire and walked downrange to inspect the target. The team gathered around him as he examined Chen's shooting group. "Holy shit," Johnson whispered, staring at the target. Chen had placed all 10 rounds in a group that could be covered by a quarter. The precision was extraordinary, demonstrating not just marksmanship ability, but also the kind of consistency that separated professional shooters from talented amateurs. Mitchell walked back to the firing line, his expression serious. "That's exceptional shooting. Let's try something more challenging." He set up targets at 300 meters and handed Chen a scoped rifle. 5 rounds, unsupported position. Chun accepted the rifle and took a kneeling position, using only her body for support. Shooting accurately at 300 meters without artificial support required advanced technique and extensive practice. The wind conditions and lighting would affect bullet trajectory, requiring real-time adjustments based on environmental factors. Chun studied the target through the scope, observing wind indicators and assessing conditions. She made minute adjustments to her position and sight picture, then began firing. Each shot was preceded by careful observation and calculation, demonstrating the methodical approach that characterized professional snipers. When she completed the string, Mitchell again examined the target. The group was slightly larger due to the increased distance and lack of support, but it was still well within the standards expected of elite marksmen. More importantly, Chun had demonstrated the ability to make rapid environmental assessments and adjust her technique accordingly. Park stepped forward. "I've been watching your shooting technique. Your breathing control and trigger discipline are outstanding." Chen nodded appreciatively. "Consistent fundamentals are the foundation of accurate shooting. Everything else is just application of those basics under different conditions." Kumar, who had extensive experience with precision shooting from his time in Army Special Forces before joining the Navy, was particularly impressed. "Where did you develop that level of technical proficiency?" Chun began describing her training progression, from childhood hunting with her father through formal military marksmanship instruction. The team listened with growing respect as she outlined the systematic approach she had developed to master various weapons systems and shooting disciplines. Williams asked about her experience with crew-serve weapons, and Chen described training on machine guns, grenade launchers, and other heavy weapon systems. Johnson inquired about her demolitions knowledge, and she outlined formal training in explosive devices and breaching techniques. As the questions continued, Morrison realized that Chen's qualifications were even more extensive than her official records had indicated. She possessed a breadth of tactical knowledge and technical expertise that would make her valuable in numerous roles beyond precision shooting. The final test of the day was the most challenging, a combined physical and marksmanship exercise that simulated combat conditions. Chen would need to complete a demanding physical course, then immediately transition to precision shooting under time pressure while her heart rate was elevated and her breathing was labored. This is where we separate the capable from the exceptional, Morrison explained. Physical stress, time pressure, and precision requirements all combined into one evaluation. Chen listened to the instructions carefully, understanding that this exercise was designed to reveal how she would perform under the kind of stress she would face in actual combat situations. The team gathered to observe, recognizing that her performance on this test would largely determine their assessment of her capabilities. At Morrison's signal, Chen began the course, immediately engaging in intensive physical exercise designed to elevate her heart rate and stress her cardiovascular system. She completed burpees, mountain climbers, and sprint intervals with the same systematic intensity she had demonstrated all day. After 5 minutes of demanding physical activity, Chen transitioned to the shooting position where 3 targets were set up at different distances and angles. She had 60 seconds to engage all 3 targets with precision shots while her body was still recovering from the physical exertion. Chen dropped into a shooting position, her breathing deep but controlled as she acquired the first target. Despite the physical stress, her rifle handling remained smooth and precise. She engaged the first target with a single, well-placed shot, then smoothly transitioned to the second target. The team watched in fascination as Chen demonstrated the ability to maintain tactical focus and technical precision while under significant physical stress. Her shooting technique remained fundamentally sound despite her elevated heart rate and labored breathing. She engaged the third and most distant target with careful deliberation, taking the time necessary to ensure an accurate shot despite the time pressure. When Mitchell examined the targets, all 3 shots were precisely placed, demonstrating exceptional performance under challenging conditions. Outstanding, Morrison announced to the assembled team. Chen has demonstrated physical fitness, marksmanship ability, and performance under stress that meets or exceeds our standards in every category. As the team began securing their equipment and preparing to return to their quarters, Morrison could sense a significant shift in their attitudes toward Chen. The day's evaluations had demonstrated capabilities that demanded respect, regardless of any preconceived notions or concerns about gender integration. Castellanos approached Chen as she was cleaning her rifle. I have to admit, I was skeptical this morning. Your performance today has been impressive. Chen continued her weapon maintenance as she responded. Thank you, Chief. I know this is a difficult situation for everyone involved. I appreciate the fair evaluation. Mitchell, who had been largely silent throughout the day, finally spoke up. Your marksmanship skills are exceptional. I look forward to working with you and learning from your techniques. Chen looked up from her rifle, recognizing the significance of Mitchell's statement. As the team's primary sniper, his acceptance would be crucial to her integration into the unit. I look forward to working with you as well, she replied. I've studied your service record and your tactical innovations. There's a lot I can learn from your experience. As the team dispersed for the evening, Morrison pulled Rodriguez aside for a private assessment of the day's activities. What's your evaluation, Senior Chief? Rodriguez considered his response carefully. Master Chief, she's exceeded my expectations in every category we tested today. Physical fitness, marksmanship, mental toughness, professionalism. If this were any other candidate, we would be recommending immediate integration into the team. Morrison nodded, pleased but not entirely surprised. And what about the team's reaction? I think they're impressed despite themselves, Rodriguez replied. Williams and Johnson seemed the most skeptical this morning, but I watched their faces during the shooting evaluation. They're beginning to recognize that she brings genuine capabilities to the team. Morrison looked toward Chen's quarters, where a light was still visible in her window. Tomorrow we start tactical training. Physical fitness and marksmanship are just the foundation. The real test will be how she integrates into our tactical procedures and mission planning processes. Rodriguez nodded in agreement. The next few weeks will be critical. She's proven she has the individual skills, but special operations is about team performance under extreme conditions. We need to see how she functions as part of the unit when lives are on the line. As Morrison walked to his own quarters, he reflected on the day's events. Chen had performed exceptionally well, exceeding his expectations and apparently earning a measure of respect from his team. But he also knew that the most challenging tests were still ahead. Integration into an elite military unit required more than individual competence. It required the ability to function as part of a team under the most demanding and dangerous conditions imaginable. The woman who had impressed them all with her performance today would soon face the ultimate test, proving that she could be trusted with the lives of her teammates, and that they could trust her with their own lives in return. 3 weeks into Chen's integration training, the team received orders that would test everything they had been working toward. Intelligence reports indicated a high-value target was operating from a compound in Syria, and Special Operations Command needed a precision strike team capable of operating in extremely hostile territory. Master Chief Morrison stood before his assembled team in the secure briefing room. Classified documents spread across the table. The mission would require infiltration through enemy-controlled territory, establishment of overwatch positions, and coordination of a complex operation involving multiple agencies and foreign partners. Gentlemen, and Chen Morrison began, still adjusting to the change in his standard dress. This is our first operational deployment with our current team composition. The mission requires all of our specialties, and everyone will have a critical role to play. Chun sat with the others, her notebook open as she documented the briefing details. Over the past 3 weeks, she had demonstrated consistent excellence in every training exercise, earning grudging respect from even the most skeptical team members. But this would be different. Training exercises could be repeated if something went wrong. Operational missions had consequences that extended far beyond individual performance. Morrison outlined the mission parameters using satellite imagery and intelligence reports. The target compound was located in a valley surrounded by mountainous terrain, providing excellent overwatch positions, but requiring precise coordination between multiple sniper teams to ensure complete coverage. Chun, your primary responsibility will be establishing overwatch on the northern approach route, Morrison explained. Mitchell will take the southern position. Together, you'll need to coordinate precision fires and ensure no enemy forces can escape or reinforce the compound during the assault. Chen studied the satellite imagery, analyzing sight lines, distances, and potential complications. Master Chief, the northern position offers excellent visibility of the compound, but the extraction route is exposed to enemy observation posts on the adjacent ridge. We'll need to coordinate with Mitchell to ensure mutual support. Mitchell nodded approvingly. Over the weeks of training together, he had developed professional respect for Chen's tactical analysis and shooting capabilities. Chen's right. We'll need overlapping fields of fire to cover both the compound and the extraction routes. Williams leaned forward to examine the compound layout. The main building has reinforced walls that will require significant explosive charges. Johnson and I will need time to position the breaching charges properly. Johnson pointed to several locations on the imagery. I recommend shaped charges on the supporting walls rather than trying to breach the main entrance. The element of surprise will be lost if we have to spend too much time on the breach. Rodriguez studied the timeline carefully. Insertion will be during a new moon phase, providing maximum darkness, but also limiting visibility for target identification. Sniper teams will need thermal imaging capabilities and precise communication protocols. Kumar outlined the communication requirements, describing how the team would maintain contact with headquarters while operating in territory where electronic surveillance was a constant threat. We'll be using frequency-hopping radios and burst transmission protocols to minimize exposure to enemy direction-finding equipment. Park reviewed medical contingencies, outlining evacuation procedures and emergency medical protocols for various scenarios. The nearest friendly forces are over 100 kilometers away, so we need to be prepared for extended operations without external medical support. Wright presented the latest intelligence on enemy forces in the area, describing patrol patterns, communication intercepts, and recent activity that might affect the mission. Enemy forces have been conducting increased patrols in this sector, but they appear to be following predictable patterns that we can exploit. Castellanos coordinated the overall timeline, ensuring that all elements of the operation were synchronized and that contingency plans existed for various scenarios. We'll have a 48-hour window to complete the mission before enemy forces can mount an effective response. As the briefing continued, Chun found herself fully integrated into the planning process. The team sought her input on sniper positioning, timing coordination, and contingency procedures. They were no longer treating her as an outsider trying to prove herself. They were treating her as a valued team member whose expertise was essential to mission success. The preparation phase required intensive coordination between all team members. Chun spent hours with Mitchell developing fire control plans and establishing communication protocols that would allow them to coordinate their shooting while operating from positions several kilometers apart. The key is synchronization, Mitchell explained as they reviewed the tactical plan. We need to be able to engage multiple targets simultaneously while providing mutual support if either position comes under attack. Chun studied the ballistic calculations for her assigned sector. Range cards are critical at these distances. I'll need precise measurements for every potential target location to ensure first-round hits. They spent days on the range, practicing the kind of precision shooting that would be required during the mission. Chin demonstrated consistent ability to engage targets at distances exceeding 800 meters, often under challenging wind conditions that required sophisticated ballistic calculations. Williams observed one of their practice sessions, watching Chun engage a series of targets in rapid succession. Her target transition time is outstanding, he commented to Johnson. She can shift between multiple targets faster than most shooters can engage a single target. Johnson nodded, his initial skepticism long since replaced by professional admiration. I've been watching her equipment preparation. Her attention to detail is exceptional. Every piece of gear is optimized for performance and reliability. The team's equipment preparation was exhaustive, with every item tested and verified before being packed for deployment. Chen's rifle was a custom-built precision weapon that she had personally modified for optimal performance. Her scope was calibrated for the specific ammunition she would be using, and her range cards were prepared with mathematical precision. Kumar worked with Chun to establish communication protocols, teaching her the specific codes and procedures the team used for tactical communication during operations. Clear, concise communication is critical when you're providing sniper support. The assault team needs to know exactly what you're seeing and exactly what threats you've identified. Chun practiced the communication protocols until they became automatic, ensuring that she could provide accurate and timely information even under the stress of combat conditions. Brevity and accuracy, she repeated. Every word needs to provide actionable information. Park conducted medical training with the entire team, reviewing trauma care procedures and ensuring that everyone was prepared to provide emergency medical treatment if necessary. Chin demonstrated proficiency with combat medical techniques, adding another capability to her growing list of qualifications. Cross-training in medical procedures is essential, Park explained. In extended operations, Any team member might need to provide life-saving treatment until we can reach a medical facility. Wright briefed the team on enemy capabilities, describing weapon systems, tactics, and recent intelligence about hostile forces in their area of operations. Chun paid particular attention to enemy sniper threats, understanding that she might face opposition from skilled marksmen who knew the terrain better than the American team. Intelligence indicates at least 2 experienced snipers operating in this sector, Wright reported. They're armed with Russian-made precision rifles and have demonstrated capability at ranges exceeding 600 meters. Chun made notes about the enemy sniper threat, planning counter-sniper tactics, and positioning strategies that would minimize her exposure while maximizing her effectiveness. Concealment and mobility will be critical. I'll need to be prepared to change positions if my location is compromised. The final briefing before deployment brought together all elements of the operation. Morrison reviewed each team member's responsibilities and ensured that everyone understood not just their own role, but how their actions would affect the entire mission. This operation requires perfect coordination and flawless execution, Morrison emphasized. Every team member's performance is critical to mission success and to everyone's safe return. Chun felt the weight of responsibility as Morrison outlined the specific requirements for sniper support. The assault team would be depending on her and Mitchell to neutralize threats, prevent enemy escape, and provide overwatch during the most vulnerable phases of the operation. The deployment phase began with a night flight to a forward staging area, where the team would spend 48 hours conducting final preparations and waiting for optimal weather conditions. Chun used the time to review her equipment one final time, checking every detail that might affect her performance during the mission. Rodriguez conducted a final inspection of all team members, ensuring that equipment was properly configured and that everyone was mentally prepared for the challenges ahead. Remember, we've trained for this scenario dozens of times. Trust your training, trust your teammates, and execute the plan. Chen's inspection went smoothly, with Rodriguez noting her thorough preparation and professional demeanor. "You're ready for this," he told her quietly. "The team is counting on you, and we have confidence in your abilities." The infiltration began at midnight, with the team moving through mountainous terrain toward their operational area. Chun carried her precision rifle and supporting equipment, approximately 60 pounds of gear that had been carefully selected and optimized for the mission. Mitchell moved parallel to her route, maintaining communication through hand signals and whispered radio transmissions. They had practiced this infiltration pattern numerous times, developing the coordination necessary to move as a unified sniper team while maintaining individual tactical flexibility. The terrain was challenging, with steep slopes and loose rock that required careful movement to avoid creating noise that might alert enemy sentries. Chun moved with a fluid grace that came from extensive training in mountain warfare, her footsteps silent and her route selection optimized for concealment. After 3 hours of movement, the team reached their deployment positions. Chun established her hide site in a location that provided excellent visibility of the target compound, while offering concealment and multiple escape routes if her position was discovered. She spent the next hour preparing her shooting position, using natural camouflage and artificial concealment to create a hide site that would be virtually invisible to enemy observation. Her rifle was positioned to cover the entire northern sector of the compound, with range cards prepared for every potential target location. Mitchell reported his arrival at the southern position, confirming that both sniper teams were in position and ready to begin the operation. Chun could see his position through her scope, noting that his concealment was equally professional and effective. Morrison's voice came through their earpieces, confirming that the assault team was ready to begin movement toward the compound. Sniper teams, report status. Overwatch 1 in position, northern sector covered, Chun reported, using her sign call sign. Overwatch 2 in position, southern sector covered, Mitchell responded. The assault team began their approach, moving through terrain that Chun could observe through her scope. She tracked their movement, identifying potential threats, and maintaining constant vigilance for enemy forces that might compromise the mission. Wright's intelligence had been accurate. Enemy sentries were positioned according to the predicted patterns, and Chen could see them moving through their patrol routes with a regularity that the team had planned to exploit. Overwatch 1 has visual on 2 sentries. Northern perimeter, Chen reported. Both targets identified and range cards prepared. Mitchell confirmed similar observations from his position. Overwatch 2 has visual on 3 sentries. Southern perimeter. All targets identified. The compound contained more activity than expected, with additional personnel visible through windows and doorways. Chun adjusted her target priorities, focusing on threats that could interfere with the assault team's approach while maintaining awareness of all potential targets in her sector. Williams and Johnson reached the compound perimeter and began positioning their breaching charges, working with practiced efficiency to place explosives at the predetermined locations. Chen watched through her scope, ready to engage any enemy forces that might discover the assault team's presence. Kumar maintained communication with all elements of the operation, coordinating between the sniper teams, assault team, and headquarters. His calm, professional voice provided the steady communication link that held the complex operation together. Park positioned himself to provide medical support and emergency extraction assistance, carrying specialized medical equipment that might be needed if team members were wounded during the assault. Wright continued monitoring enemy communication intercepts, providing real-time intelligence about hostile forces that might be responding to the operation. No change in enemy radio traffic, he reported. No indication they're aware of our presence. Castellanos coordinated the overall operation timeline, ensuring that all elements remained synchronized and that the mission proceeded according to the planned schedule. Assault team, you have green light for breach in 60 seconds. Chun felt her heart rate increase slightly as the critical moment approached. Everything she had trained for, everything the team had worked toward, was about to be tested in actual combat conditions. Her finger rested lightly on her rifle's trigger, ready to engage targets the moment they posed a threat to her teammates. The explosions from the breaching charges shattered the night silence, and the compound erupted in activity as the assault team moved through the breaches. Chun could see enemy forces rushing toward defensive positions, and she began engaging targets according to the pre-planned priority list. Her first shot was at 730 meters, engaging an enemy fighter who was attempting to establish a defensive position that would threaten the assault team's advance. The shot was perfect, neutralizing the threat immediately. Mitchell engaged targets in his sector simultaneously, his shots coordinated with Chen's to prevent enemy forces from organizing an effective defense. Together, they dominated the battlefield with precision fires that eliminated threats before they could endanger the assault team. Multiple threats neutralized, Chen reported, transitioning to her next target. Northern sector secure. The assault progressed rapidly, with Williams and Johnson clearing rooms systematically while Park provided security and medical support. Kumar maintained constant communication with all elements, ensuring coordination and providing updates to headquarters. Chun continued engaging targets as they appeared, her shots precise and deliberate. Each engagement was calculated to minimize risk to friendly forces while eliminating enemy threats. Her training and preparation were paying off as she demonstrated the ability to perform under actual combat stress. Wright reported increased enemy radio traffic, indicating that hostile forces were becoming aware of the operation and might be preparing to respond. Enemy forces may be mobilizing reinforcements. Estimated arrival time, 30 minutes. Morrison made the decision to accelerate the assault timeline, understanding that the team needed to complete their mission and extract before enemy reinforcements could arrive. All elements increase pace. We need to complete mission and initiate extraction in 20 minutes. Chun adjusted her priorities to focus on preventing enemy escape while continuing to support the assault team. She could see several enemy fighters attempting to flee the compound through routes that would allow them to alert reinforcements or establish ambush positions along the extraction route. Her next series of shots was at maximum range, engaging fleeing targets at distances exceeding 800 meters. The challenging shots required precise compensation for wind conditions and target movement, but Chin's training and experience allowed her to engage effectively. Mitchell provided complementary fires, ensuring that no enemy forces could escape or establish positions that would threaten the team's extraction. Together, the sniper team was demonstrating the kind of coordinated precision that special operations required. The assault team completed their mission successfully, securing the target and gathering critical intelligence materials. Park treated minor wounds sustained by Williams during room clearing operations, demonstrating the medical skills that made him invaluable to the team. Johnson prepared additional charges to destroy equipment that could not be evacuated, ensuring that enemy forces would not benefit from any materials left behind. His demolitions expertise allowed the team to deny valuable resources to hostile forces. As the extraction phase began, Chun and Mitchell provided overwatch for the team's movement toward the extraction point. This was often the most dangerous phase of operations, when enemy forces had time to organize responses and establish ambush positions. Chun identified movement along the extraction route that indicated enemy forces were attempting to establish an ambush. She engaged the threats at long range, neutralizing them before they could endanger her teammates. Extraction route secured, she reported. Multiple threats neutralized along primary route. Mitchell confirmed similar activities in his sector, demonstrating the value of coordinated sniper support during complex operations. Together, they had dominated the battlefield and prevented enemy forces from interfering with the mission. The team's extraction was completed successfully, with all personnel safely evacuated along with critical intelligence materials and mission objectives achieved. As they moved toward the pickup zone, Chin reflected on her first operational deployment with the SEAL team. She had performed exactly as trained, demonstrating the capabilities that had earned her selection for the team. More importantly, she had proven that she could function effectively as part of an elite unit under actual combat conditions. Morrison's voice came through their communications as they reached the extraction point. Outstanding performance, all elements. Mission successful, all personnel accounted for. As they waited for their extraction aircraft, Chun cleaned her rifle and secured her equipment, following the same post-operation procedures that the team had drilled countless times during training. The mission had been successful, but she knew that this was just the beginning of proving herself as a permanent member of one of the military's most elite units. 6 months had passed since Chin's first operational deployment, and the team had completed 3 more successful missions together. What had begun as cautious acceptance had evolved into genuine professional respect and personal bonds that only formed between warriors who had faced life and death situations together. The morning sun filtered through the windows of the team room as the members of SEAL Team 7 gathered for their weekly equipment maintenance session. Chin sat at her usual position near the window, methodically cleaning her precision rifle with the same attention to detail that had characterized her approach to everything since joining the team. Williams looked up from his breaching tools, watching Chin's meticulous weapon care routine. "You know, Chun, I owe you an apology." Chun paused in her cleaning, looking at Williams with curiosity. "For what?" Williams set down his tools and leaned back in his chair. "When you first arrived, I wasn't sure this was going to work. I had a lot of assumptions about women in combat, about team dynamics, about whether someone could really earn a place here." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I was wrong." Chin resumed cleaning her rifle, but she was listening carefully. Williams had been among the most skeptical team members initially, and his opinion carried significant weight with the others. "Last month, when we were extracting from that compound in Afghanistan, your overwatch saved our lives," Williams continued. "That enemy sniper team would have had us pinned down if you hadn't identified and eliminated them. Your shooting at that range under those conditions was some of the best I've ever seen." Johnson nodded in agreement, looking up from the explosive device he was maintaining. That was a hell of a shot series. 850 meters, crosswind, moving targets. Most shooters couldn't make those shots under perfect conditions, let alone during a firefight. Chen appreciated their words, but remained focused on her weapon maintenance. That's what we trained for. Any one of you would have done the same thing in my position. Mitchell, who was working on his own rifle nearby, spoke without looking up. No, Chen, not everyone could have made those shots. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I'm not sure I could have handled that situation as well as you did. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Master Chief Morrison and Senior Chief Rodriguez, both carrying coffee and looking like they had been in meetings since early morning. Morrison set his coffee on the table and surveyed his team with satisfaction. I have some news that I think you'll all be interested in hearing, Morrison announced. Command has been evaluating our performance over the past 6 months, and they're extremely pleased with our mission success rate and operational effectiveness. Rodriguez opened a folder and began reading from an official document. SEAL Team 7 has achieved a 100% mission success rate with 0 casualties and minimal collateral damage across 4 operational deployments. Command specifically notes the exceptional coordination between team members and the innovative tactical approaches that have been developed. Chun continued working on her rifle, but she was listening intently. She knew that these evaluations could determine future assignments and opportunities for the entire team. Morrison looked directly at Chun. They specifically mentioned the integration of precision marksmanship capabilities and noted that our sniper team coordination has become a model for other units. Kumar looked up from his communication equipment. What does that mean for us going forward? Morrison smiled. It means we're being assigned to the Special Missions Unit. Effective immediately, SEAL Team 7 will be handling the most sensitive and challenging operations that come through Special Operations Command. The team room fell silent as the implications of Morrison's announcement settled in. Assignment to the Special Missions Unit was the highest level of recognition that a SEAL team could receive. It meant they would be handling operations that other units couldn't or wouldn't be trusted with. Park was the first to respond. That's incredible news, Master Chief. What's our first assignment? Rodriguez opened another folder, this one marked with higher classification levels than anything the team had handled before. Counterterrorism operation in the Philippines. Multiple high-value targets, complex terrain, extended duration deployment. Wright leaned forward, his intelligence specialist instincts immediately engaged. What's the threat assessment? Morrison outlined the mission parameters, describing a terrorist organization that had been conducting increasingly sophisticated attacks against civilian and military targets. The organization was well-funded, well-armed, and operating from territory that provided significant tactical advantages. This isn't going to be a quick strike mission, Morrison explained. We're looking at potentially weeks or months of operations, tracking multiple targets across difficult terrain while avoiding detection by both enemy forces and local populations. Chun felt a surge of excitement, mixed with apprehension. Extended operations would test every aspect of their training and their ability to function as a team under prolonged stress. Castellanos studied the maps and intelligence reports. What's our support structure going to be? Rodriguez outlined the logistics and support arrangements, describing a complex operation that would require coordination with multiple agencies and foreign partners. We'll have limited external support once we're deployed. Self-sufficiency and adaptability will be critical. Johnson examined the target photographs and intelligence summaries. These guys look like they know what they're doing. Professional training, quality equipment, sophisticated tactics. Mitchell studied the terrain analysis, noting the challenges that the environment would present for precision shooting. Mountain jungle terrain, high humidity, variable weather conditions. We'll need to adapt our equipment and tactics for these conditions. Chen made notes about the environmental factors that would affect her shooting, understanding that she would need to prepare for conditions very different from their previous operations. Ballistic performance will be affected by humidity and altitude changes. I'll need to develop new range cards and zeroing procedures. Kumar analyzed the communication requirements, noting the challenges of maintaining contact with headquarters while operating in terrain that would interfere with radio transmissions. We'll need redundant communication systems and carefully planned transmission schedules. Park reviewed the medical challenges associated with extended operations in tropical environments, outlining prevention and treatment protocol for diseases and injuries that were specific to the region. Medical evacuation will be extremely limited once we're deployed. Prevention and field treatment capabilities will be critical. Williams and Johnson discussed the tactical challenges of operating against an enemy that was familiar with the terrain and had local population support. We'll need to be extremely careful about our approach routes and base locations. Wright outlined the intelligence picture, describing what was known about enemy capabilities and what remained uncertain. This organization has demonstrated sophisticated operational security. We'll need to develop intelligence as we operate. As the briefing continued, Chen found herself fully engaged in the planning process. The team was treating her as an integral part of their tactical analysis, seeking her input on shooting positions, target engagement priorities, and operational timing. Morrison observed the team's interaction with satisfaction. 6 months earlier, he had wondered whether integration would be successful. Now he was watching a team that functioned with seamless coordination, where every member's expertise was valued and utilized. Deployment is scheduled for next week, Morrison announced. We'll have 5 days to complete our preparation and training for this specific environment and mission profile. The team spent the rest of the morning reviewing equipment requirements and beginning the detailed preparation that would be necessary for extended operations in challenging conditions. Chun worked with Mitchell to modify their rifle systems for tropical conditions, adjusting equipment to handle high humidity and temperature variations. Rodriguez pulled Chun aside during a break in the planning session. "How do you feel about this assignment?" Chun considered the question carefully. "Excited and honored, Senior Chief. This is exactly the kind of mission I hope to be part of when I requested assignment to a SEAL team." Rodriguez nodded approvingly. "You've earned your place here, Chun. The team trusts you completely, and that's not something that happens overnight." Chun felt a sense of satisfaction at Rodriguez's words. Trust was the foundation of special operations teams, and earning that trust had been her primary goal since arriving at Coronado. The afternoon was spent in intensive training exercises designed to prepare the team for the specific challenges they would face during the upcoming deployment. Chun and Mitchell worked together to develop coordinated sniper tactics for jungle terrain, practicing techniques for camouflage, concealment, and movement in dense vegetation. Williams and Johnson rehearsed breaching techniques for the types of structures they expected to encounter, adapting their standard procedures for buildings constructed with local materials and methods. Kumar tested communication equipment under conditions that simulated the interference they would encounter in mountainous jungle terrain, developing backup procedures and alternative transmission schedules. Park conducted medical training focused on tropical diseases and injuries, ensuring that every team member could provide appropriate treatment for conditions they might encounter. Wright analyzed intelligence reports and developed target folders for the individuals they would be seeking, creating detailed profiles that would help with identification and tracking. Castellanos coordinated the overall training schedule, ensuring that individual specialty training was integrated with team exercises that tested their collective capabilities. As the week progressed, Chen found herself working more closely with her teammates than ever before. The complexity of the upcoming mission required unprecedented coordination between all team specialties. She spent hours with Mitchell developing range card for the various elevations and environmental conditions they might encounter. They practiced shooting at different times of day to understand how tropical lighting conditions would affect target identification and engagement. Williams asked for her input on target designation procedures, understanding that sniper teams would often be in the best position to identify targets for breaching teams. They developed hand signal systems and radio protocols that would allow seamless coordination between precision shooters and assault elements. Johnson consulted with her about timing for demolitions, recognizing that explosive charges needed to be coordinated with sniper fires to achieve maximum tactical effect. They practiced sequences where demolitions would drive targets into sniper engagement areas. Kumar worked with her to establish communication protocols specifically for sniper teams operating at extended distances from the main element. They developed codes and transmission schedules that would allow effective coordination while minimizing exposure to enemy direction-finding equipment. Park asked her to help develop casualty evacuation procedures for situations where wounded personnel might need to be moved through terrain that only sniper teams could effectively observe and secure. Wright requested her assistance in developing target identification procedures, recognizing that sniper teams would often have the best observation positions for confirming target identities. Castellanos integrated her input into the overall tactical plan, ensuring that sniper capabilities were fully utilized in every phase of the operation. By the end of the preparation week, Chun felt more integrated into the team than she had thought possible. Her teammates were not just accepting her capabilities, they were actively seeking her expertise and relying on her contributions to mission planning. Morrison conducted a final briefing the night before deployment, reviewing every aspect of the operation and ensuring that all team members understood not just their own responsibilities, but how their actions would affect the entire mission. This deployment will test everything we've learned about operating as a team, Morrison told them. We'll be in challenging terrain, facing a sophisticated enemy, with limited external support. Success will depend on our ability to function as a unified element while adapting to changing conditions. Chun felt the weight of responsibility as Morrison outlined the specific role that sniper teams would play in the operation. She and Mitchell would often be operating independently, making tactical decisions that would affect the entire team's safety and mission success. Rodriguez addressed the team's morale and readiness. You've trained for this mission extensively, and you're as prepared as any team can be. Trust your training, trust each other, and execute the plan. Chun looked around the room at her teammates, men who had become more than professional colleagues. They had become the kind of brothers that only formed in combat, men who trusted her with their lives and whom she trusted with hers. Williams caught her eye and nodded slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement and confidence that spoke volumes about how far their relationship had evolved. Mitchell gave her a slight smile, the expression of a professional partner who looked forward to working together under challenging conditions. Johnson tapped his fingers on the table in a rhythm that Chun recognized from their training exercises, a subtle signal of readiness and anticipation. Kumar organized his communication equipment with methodical precision, the same attention to detail that characterized all his professional activities. Park checked his medical supplies one final time, the careful preparation that ensured he would be ready to save lives under any conditions. Wright reviewed his intelligence summaries, his analytical mind already working through the challenges they would face. Castellanos coordinated the final equipment checks, his leadership ensuring that every detail was covered. Rodriguez and Morrison observed their team with obvious pride, recognizing the evolution from a group of individual specialists into a truly unified special operations element. As the briefing ended and the team dispersed to complete final preparations, Chun reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. 6 months earlier, she had been an outsider trying to prove herself worthy of joining an elite unit. Now she was an integral part of one of the military's most capable teams, preparing for a mission that would test every skill she had developed and every bond she had formed. The woman who had walked into the SEAL compound with determination and uncertainty was now a trusted teammate who had earned her place through performance, professionalism, and the kind of courage that could only be tested in combat. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight she was exactly where she belonged, surrounded by brothers who had accepted her not because of her gender, but despite it, and who valued her not for what she represented, but for what she contributed. The next morning would begin a deployment that would test everything they had built together, but Chun felt ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. She had found her place among warriors, and she intended to prove that she belonged there. The humid air of the Philippine jungle pressed against Chen's face as she adjusted her position in the hide site she had occupied for the past 14 hours. 3 weeks into their extended deployment, the team had been tracking a high-value target through mountainous terrain that seemed designed to frustrate every aspect of modern military operations. Intelligence had finally located their primary target, a terrorist leader responsible for coordinating attacks across Southeast Asia. But the compound where he was hiding presented the most challenging tactical situation the team had ever faced. Chun studied the target area through her scope, noting details that would be critical for the assault team's approach. The compound was built into the side of a steep hillside, with natural rock formations providing defensive advantages and multiple escape routes that would be difficult to cover. Mitchell's voice came through her earpiece, barely audible above the constant background noise of jungle insects and weather. Overwatch 1. This is Overwatch 2. Target compound has increased activity. Count 12 personnel visible. Possible additional inside structures. Chun adjusted her scope and confirmed Mitchell's observation. Confirmed. Overwatch 2. 12 visible. Weapons evident. Defensive positions prepared. This is going to be complicated. The compound's location had been chosen specifically to make assault operations difficult. Approach routes were limited and easily observed, while the defenders had excellent fields of fire and multiple positions that could support each other during an attack. Morrison's voice came through the communication net, calm and professional despite the complexity of the situation they faced. All elements, prepare for final coordination briefing. We execute at 0200 hours. Chun began her final preparations, checking equipment and reviewing range cards one last time. This operation would require the most precise coordination and flawless execution of anything the team had attempted. Every detail had been planned and rehearsed, but the actual terrain and enemy positions presented challenges that couldn't be fully anticipated during training. Rodriguez coordinated the team's movement to their final briefing location, a concealed position approximately 2 kilometers from the target compound. Chun moved through the jungle with a silent efficiency that had become second nature after weeks of operations in this environment. The team gathered in a natural depression that provided concealment and allowed them to spread maps and imagery for final planning. Morrison outlined the assault plan one final time, ensuring that